Okay, thank you everyone for being here. It's July 21st during the 3 weeks. Baruch Hashem, we gathered to have another learning at a beautiful host that had us with amazing people that are here tonight joining us. We're very blessed to be with each other. There's nothing right like the Kedusha of woman gathering and learning. Just like Miriam Hanaviyah, as soon as they crossed the Red Sea, the first thing she didn't tell her husband, her son, her uncle, her this or that. She took her tambourine, took all the women and said, let's go celebrate and dance and sing to God for the miracle that he did for us. We learned about Sarah Imenu's tent when the angels came to visit Abraham. And the angels say, where is Sarah? And Abraham says, Sarah is in her tent. So I always wondered, why was Sarah in her tent? What does that mean? Like he's in one tent? And my husband said, because Sarah, during the morning, Abraham would leave the tent that they were sleeping in, and would go to his tent to learn with the men. And Sarah was in her tent meeting with the wives. So when the wives had questions or things that would come up for them, they would come to her tent to consult with her. So this concept of feminine energy, feminine tent, feminine gathering is very, very essential. And we had someone tonight, I was telling him how I love talking. It's something that it's a gift that God has given me and just comes to me very naturally. And I was saying in the beginning, I used to try to get my husband to listen to all my stories, and in the midst of COVID, of us being trapped in the house and like it's in each other's like face all the time. One Saturday night I came and I told my husband that, guess what, I have an idea. And my husband very gently turned around and said, when don't you have ideas? You always have ideas. And I said, okay. And then he said, well, yeah, but then he said, don't you have anyone else to share these ideas with? I mean, and then I took a moment because I had 1 cup of coffee. So like my energy level was like very high. And I said, that's such a good idea. Like, why should I? And he said it like it wasn't mean. He just said, don't you have like any of like your other friends, your sisters, like anyone else you wish to? Because when men want to have their cave time, they want to have their cave time. Like men's social skills and abilities are on a different level than women. Like we had a class this morning about emotional intelligence, and my niece here, she has her master's as an educational therapist, talks about executive functioning, and she specializes in that area about how do you go about the emotional intelligence and the ability and recognizing who has what to offer and how do you make the use out of it. So you got to be realistic. So men crave that cave time of unwinding, alone time more than women do. So as women, we got to create opportunities to get that needs met, which is in a healthy setting with other women learning, growing together, and have our husband as our spouse, not as our girlfriend, cousin, sister, best friend, like their mind doesn't really process and work the way ours do. So this takes me on to the day. A few people asked me that when we do the learning tonight, to also, there's another young woman that's sick, and talking about the mitzvah of hair covering before we do the hafrashat challah and understanding it and where is it coming from and the importance of it. So I don't know if you guys know or not, the mitzvah of hair covering, one of the places that we learn about it is the Sotah. It was the parsha of 3 weeks ago. And how do we learn it from there? Because in there it says that if a man comes and accuses that his wife had an affair on him, went with another man, and this is a very interesting that I didn't know. So I thought he accuses her, she drinks the water, she dies. Like, whether she does it or not wasn't important. That's what I thought it was. But when I delved more into it, it doesn't really work like that. He accuses her, she could say, I don't want to answer and I want my get. So that Sanhedrin would give her the get and she would go on with her life. And even if she did have an affair, she would have could even go on with her life. She wouldn't have died. I didn't know that. I thought it was like the Islamic culture that they would like take you and like whatever, even if it was an assumption, you would be considered guilty. But it wasn't like that. So the woman could have said, I don't want to answer this question, I want out. The only way they would go through the process, which one of the processes was, they would bring the married woman in front of the Sanhedrin of the 70 elder men, and they would say to her, did you do it? Did you do it? And then she would say, I don't want to answer. They would ask her again, did you do it? She would say, I don't want to answer. But again, she would continue to sit there. She chose to sit there. So then it says the head of the Sanhedrin would come and uncover her hair. Like, it's in the Torah. It's not in the commentary, or like, I think it's like one of the verses that would say, so what does that mean, So one of the things we have to understand with hair covering, it has to do with the mystical power and the status. When a woman gets married, the level, the prestige that she's on, it's like kind of like the things you get out of your... When a woman gets married, there is a certain specialness, connection that happens, after they get married, and that takes them to the next chapter of their life, becoming a husband and wife, that there are certain energies that sits on her hair. You don't see it with the naked eye, like the Wi-Fi and the radiation. But Mekubal and Kabbalists, they see it. And those energies have a lot of power and have a lot of kochot. And in order to keep it kodesh, to keep it private, the hair becomes like the private parts of the body. So you keep it kadosh and private. And another thing I was thinking, one of the women that came to the party we had tonight, she walked in with a tiara, and it was her birthday. And she walked in with this like little beautiful tiara on her head. And as she walked in, everybody turned to her and said, "What's the occasion?" No, they said like, "What's the occasion?" She stood out. And I was thinking, this is exactly what the hair covering is. The hair covering is to say, when I walk into a party, when I walk to a room full of people, my status and my single friends were not on the same status. Like, dear single guy or whoever else that's looking at us, this is me, the married woman, and this is she, the single woman. We are not on the same level. I am on another level because I belong to a husband. My husband and I belong to each other. So I am in a status of courtship and a relationship, which takes me to another level. And with the mitzvah of hair covering, everything counts. So even if you don't cover your hair all the time and you're a married woman and you choose to do it by candle lighting, you choose to do it when you say tefillah, you choose to do it on Leil Shabbat, you choose to even start with like a little headband, and you say to God, where I am in my life right now, I'm not able to do the whole, but this is something I can do. So this woman that's sick, that we're praying for a complete refuah shlema, refuat ha-nefesh, refuat ha-guf, asked for us to talk about the mitzvah. So to say, can you ask them to do that? So if any of you can make an extra effort, and for the girls would be like the modesty and like a little bit more for her refuah shlema. Like if the skirt is like this much above, do a little bit longer and say, for this person, I don't know who they are, Hashem should bring them healing. To like I'm contributing with my mitzvot. And another thing I wanted to add is that the tzniut and the hair covering is the opposite of what we learn about this week's Parashat Pinchas. Pinchas was the one who, when the Magefa happened, the Midian, because Biliam and Balak wanted to curse the Jews, right? So he said, let's take our sword. And they said, forget it, that's not going to work with the Jews. He said, let's curse the Jews. He said, no, that's not going to work. So he said, what? Let's send them the woman and get them to sin. Once they sin, God's mercy will be less, and then we're going to get them. And how did they get them to sin? What did they do? They send the Midiani woman. They send the Midiani woman to go and like show themselves off and do this and that. And things just got worse and worse. And even Shimon, which was the head of Zimri, which was the head of Shevet Shimon, he went and publicly, in front of everyone, did whatever his heart desires. Pinchas went into rage, but not because of himself. We do not encourage anger or like things like that in Judaism, something like that. But Pinchas went into rage of, how could you do this? You're the master, you're Zimri. How can you get yourself to come and do this? What is it? Who's the name? Or did I say the name wrong? No. Oh, I thought I said the name. Oh, and then I also asked my husband, I said, why didn't Moshe do anything? Why did Pinchas come and do it? And he said, because Moshe's wife, Sipporah, was also from Midian. She was a Midiani woman. Even though she converted and she was Tsanua, but Moshe said to himself, what are they going to do, listen to me? They're going to say, who are you to say anything? You took one and married her. So that's why Moshe stayed quiet. So when Pinchas came, Pinchas took his sword and did that. That's when it ended the Magefa. Pinchas never doubted himself. Pinchas knew L'Shem Shamayim this was wrong, and he did it. And I added on the talk that I did on Tuesday that I said men are more like rocket ship. Like their desire, no offense against the guys in the room, which is not many, but men, when they are like kind of like see a girl and they get excited, their logic leaves the room. Like the logic is out. So the men, that's how God tricks them. That's how guys work. That's how God does that for them. For the men, you cannot push them in a corner and say, don't look, don't feel, don't desire. Like, this is how biology of a man works. So you got to be careful where you place them. And I said many women don't want to understand when the husband says, I'm not comfortable to come to her house. I'm not comfortable to go out to dinner with her. And the woman says, what's your problem? It's my cousin. What's your problem? It's my sister. Maybe indirectly he's saying, the way she dresses. It's not that he's a pervert. It's not. He's saying to you, heads up, like, hello, I'm just being realistic with my masculine side. I am not comfortable being on so many intimate gatherings with them, and even excessive Shabbatot. There's so many problems in so many frum homes now with young couples excessively spending time together that the husbands just get too comfortable. Why don't you do your hair like that? Why don't you wear your sheitel like that? Why don't you... No, tzniut always has to have boundaries. You should never ever get too comfortable, and men have a weakness in this area. So you cannot corner them and say, don't feel, don't act, don't flirt, just be nice and smile. I remember at one of the women at the end of this lecture, she says, oh my God, I'm so happy I heard you say this, because I have this one friend that's always comes to our house and she doesn't, and I always get into a fight with my husband, and I tell her, why don't you talk to her at our Shabbat table? And my husband keeps saying, it's not my wife. And I used to get so angry with him. But now that I heard you, I have a different understanding of it. He just did not feel comfortable. Right now, unfortunately, we live in a generation that modest men, reserved men, private men are being put down for it. But women are such naive simpleton that they don't realize men are like rocket ship. There is no in-between. They're not like merry-go-round and round and round. It's like a rocket ship. Their body and their system works very differently. So the more they guard themselves, the better it is. And girls that want to take advantage of guys, especially in the single world, sometimes know how that works. So they take advantage of it. So the more we keep ourselves kadosh, what happened during Pinchas's time is not during the Pinchas time. What happened with the Midyanim women are happening through cell phones now. So we have to always be careful what's on the cell phone, what's happening. It's not that I just clicked on it. I didn't know, I just clicked on it. These clicks can lead into very, very dark places. So we have to be mindful of it, that the more we put gedarim, we put fences, we're more careful with the way we greet our husband, our friend's husband, and how our husband greets my girlfriend. These are lessons for our kids of what's permissible and what's not. The bigger boundaries, the bigger limits, the better it is, because it's all about, you set this. My niece comes to us on Shabbat. I always tell them, they're 12 right now. I'm like, where you see those guys are, you go the other way. You go do your davening over there, because once there's just becomes, it's not like this only happens when you're 16, 17. No, you got to have your limits. You got to have but you got to have opportunities to kind of have a healthy outlet within the right boundaries and within the right guidelines. And again, every family has their own ways every family has their own things that they're comfortable with. But we just have to know that we're powerful. As women especially, we're powerful. Our perfume, our shoes, our lipstick, our appearance is powerful. And we should never forget that the dressing up is not just about when we go outside and looking like a shemata when we come inside. This is not how a Jewish home runs. A Jewish home runs about those extra beautiful lipstick to be worn at the home, that extra nice clothes to be worn at the home, the nice hair covering, or whether you choose to leave your hair out, whatever it is, it should never end because you come into the house. No pajama life. Like my husband's family, they don't have any pajamas at home. That was like a disaster for me. It was like a reality show. I remember in my family we have pajamas, like the comfortable clothes or whatever.
Yeah,
you like chill in your chill clothes. I remember I got married and I was like in my sleeping pajamas, and I came and I sat. It was like the first day that I was married, and my husband's like, when we were in Israel, it was like after our Sheva Brachot, and my husband is like, aren't you changing? And I'm like, change for what? He's like, well, we're waking up. I said, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. You're going to yeshiva. I'm not going anywhere. He's like, yeah, but aren't you going to change? I'm like, no. And he's like, you're going to just stay in your pajamas? I said, yeah, why not? He's like, really? Families do that? I'm like, your family doesn't? He's like, no. I said, so what does your family do? He's like, no, my parents get up. They get dressed like for the day. I'm like, well, why would I get dressed for the day if I'm home, But then I picked that up, and that's what we implement in our home. میگن بعضی آدما مثلا لباس پیژامه رو فقط تو تخت خواب میپوشن، لباس بیرونشون رو از صبح که پا میشن میپوشن، یعنی لباس خوبشون رو چه برن از خونه بیرون چه نه میپوشن. So that's the kavod. When you have self-respect, even your pajamas should look nice. They should never be like pajamas because it has holes I wear. So that's the dignity of a woman, the royalty of a hair covering, the clothing that I put on me. I'm doing it because I am royal and valuable, nothing less. And from this, I'm going to go into the Harfasha. And at our Bat Mitzvah club party that we had last week, we spoke about the 3 mitzvot of the woman. So we did the candle lighting, and I compared the candle lighting to also the way you dress. It's not just about the candle you light on Shabbat. It's also about the clothing choices you make every day that becomes light onto the nation. That when you go into the world, people look at you, they're like, wow, who's that girl like dressed so put together? Look at how she's sitting. Look at how she's carrying herself. And modesty, you could wear a dress that covers your elbow, covers your knee, and it looks like it was just painted on you, right? There is different level of modesty, and a girl can wear a little bit of a looser clothes, but it's not right up below her knee, but it's looser. And it's not so fitted. So modesty is all about, am I walking around like with this sensual appearance, or am I walking around with dignity? The dignity is what matters. That is the candle lighting. Is not just about the candle you light on Shabbat. It's also about how you dress and carry yourself throughout the week. Then we have the Hafrashat Challah, which is the mitzvah that we're doing. And that's teaching us about the blessing of the bread and offering. Gifting, right? How am I going into the world gifting of my time? The hafrasha is about offering. And also the brachot. Every time I'm eating, am I saying bracha? Am I saying brikat hamazon? I, as a girl that's going to be the mother of the house, what effort am I doing now at the age of 12 years old for my family? How am I adding on to the Shabbat table because I'm at that chapter of my life, which is like where you are now? And then next is the laws of the mikveh, which the mikveh is the mitzvah that you do when you get married. And one of our gold bow, Doda Racheli, which is our gold bowing master coach, said that the mikveh is about what? The kedusha, the kodeshness, which is what? The shomer negia. Because once you get married and you practice the laws of the mikveh, is the shomer negia in marriage. When girls tell me, oh my God, shomer negia is so hard, it's not for me, I'm like, well, I have a surprise for you. Like, if you get married and you want to keep the laws of mikveh, it's like another
2 weeks.
2 weeks physical intimacy, 2 week emotional intimacy. So there is that strength of like working on ourselves to build our emotional intelligence. How do you communicate with it? I can't believe you guys are still sitting there. I'm very impressed. Thanks. This is like such a chizuk for me. I feel her sons really like this is like I feel so excited. And you're not even being forced. I don't know if she's bribing you, but yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have you guys there. And you're not even on your phone. I'm like so flattered. I'm like really flattered. Thank you, God. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. So I'm saying like the Shomer Negia is saying I value you and I value myself. I respect you. That's why I could connect with you with my words, and I could connect with you with my physical connection. That is the value of a woman. And a man also, when a guy his emotional intelligence is high, that means he could pick up the emotion and the language and connect on another level beyond physicality, which is a part that you have to grow. So by us doing the mitzvah of hafrasha and coming together, it's teaching us the collectiveness, and that's what life is about. The achdut, the oneness. Like just like last week parasha, this week's parasha is Pinchas. And another thing about Pinchas is, what did he do? He did the mitzvah of ending the magefa, like the forbidden relationship. And who did Pinchas become? Eliyahu Hanavi. He became Eliyahu Hanavi. And where is Eliyahu Hanavi always present at? And Brit Milah. And what's a Brit Milah significant of?
Circumcision.
Of a covenant we most of the time we consider it as being between a husband and wife. So he is welcomed, invited back for the goodness of when the relationship is right, because he ended a relationship that was wrong. So he always comes to the relationship that is right. So tonight we're going to do our bread making, and it should bring bracha and hatzlacha to everyone, and with goodness and only happiness in everyone's home.